Hello and welcome to Maximum Disc, a show where I celebrate physical media and talk about films that I own on Blu Ray and 4K Blu Ray. I'm James Adamson, I'm a co-host on the Double Reel Film Podcast. If you like this chat about physical media, please do check out Double Reel. It's a magazine-style podcast made by people who love the movies as much as you do. We think if you listen to any episode, you'll get a bunch of good recommendations of things to watch or check out instead of just doing whatever the algorithm tells you. That was the sales pitch for the podcast. Now we're talking about physical media. Why does it matter? Well, hopefully you've already clicked on this and already believe it does, but I'll give a short version of it anyway. If you care about a film, you need to own it. You can't rely on the streamers to make the film that you're looking for available. Quite often you'll be looking for something in particular and it's not there. It's just the same old stuff over and over again. If it is there, is it the special edition director's cut, the one that makes the film actually work the way it should? Usually not. And it never looks and sounds its best on a compressed file over the internet instead of on a lovely disc that's on your shelf for you to look at anytime you like. So that's why I'm into physical media. Hopefully you are too. Every episode I talk about one film that I own. Obviously I talk about the video and the sound to talk about how it's a good transfer or whether there are any problems with it. I also talk about my background with the film, why I came to love it, own it, my relationship to it overall. And in summing up, one of the things I'll talk about is whether this is something you should add to your own physical media collection, which is just my opinion, but hopefully it'll make help you make your own mind up. So today we're doing Citizen Kane on Blu Ray. This is a big one, incredibly famous film. Released in 1941, famously directed by Orson Welles, the boy wonder of 30s and 40s theatre and radio, making his filmmaking debut with this film. He's legendary, making a film people regard as the greatest of all time with his first feature, and then spent the rest of his career struggling to live up to that impossibly high standard, falling in and out of favour with Hollywood, so there were times he couldn't even get work, and only making films that showed his true talent in fits and starts, like Touch of Evil, one of these kind of classic wayward genius types. He's just generally regarded in those terms. It was co-written by Orson Welles himself with Herman J. Mankiewicz, who's working together, falling out and disputing authorship credit for this film and the rights and so on, was the subject of Hollywood legend and lately a David Fincher film called Mank, which discussed that whole process. In the cast, it's Orson Welles in the lead. It's a very Orson Welles film. Also, key roles played by Joseph Cotten, who people will know from other things like The Third Man and other things. Other actors who you sort of recognise, but I mainly only know from these films like Agnes Moorehead, Dorothy Comingore, and Everett Sloane. The cinematography is by Greg Toland, who Wells called the best director of photography in the business. A huge reputation, including this, but also Wuthering Heights and The Grapes of Wrath for John Ford. In terms of sound, only two people are actually listed for sound in the film's credits, recordists Bailey Fessler and James G. Stewart. And in IMDb, there are two people in uncredited supervisory roles who are actually quite important to the process, John Ahlberg and Truman K. Wood. Basically, this is just the era of limited film credits in a movie. You would get like a couple of quick screens and then on with the film, as opposed to today when everyone gets a mention in like a long credits roll at the end. The score was by Bernard Herrmann, legendary nowadays for his work on Hitchcock films and Scorsese's Taxi Driver, absolutely massive figure in film composing. Just a sample of his work: The Day the Earth Stood Still, The Magnificent Ambersons, Vertigo, North by Northwest, Psycho, Cape Fear, Jason and the Argonauts, Fahrenheit 451. He did everything. He was actually making his debut as a film composer this year, having worked with Orson Welles on previous projects, including his notorious War of the Worlds radio drama. Basically, a lot of people working on this film came with Welles from his radio and theatre days and were embarking on film careers with him for this movie. In terms of awards and nominations, it's part of the whole story of this film is how it didn't do as well as you might expect when it first came out. On the other hand, it did get 9 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Cinematography, Editing, Score, Sound Recording. It only won for Screenplay, which meant Welles got an award for that. Bernard Herrmann was in fact nominated twice in his category, Best Score. The Best Score category used to be a bit odd back then. It used to be Original Song Score, Drama, but he was nominated twice for composing music for films that year. And he actually won the Oscar that year for the other film of his that came out, All That Money Can Buy. So Herrmann had a good year, even though he didn't win anything for Citizen Kane. The film did do better at other awards groups. It won several from America's National Board of Review, the New York Film Critics Association, and Photoplay. Again, this is back in the day when you didn't have sort of dozens or even hundreds of awards shows, so that, for example, when Forrest Whitaker won his Oscar for The Last King of Scotland, he was nominated for 122 awards and won like 58 just for one film. There weren't as many awards back then, but even though it didn't do as well as a film that people refer to as the best of all time would normally do, a lot of people may already know this, but its rough ride at the time was partly because the famous publisher Hearst, W.R. Hearst, who was the Rupert Murdoch of his day, he owned a lot of the media. He felt the film was about him and was a hatchet job on him, and he owned a lot of the media, newspapers, and organisations that reviewed films. He actually suppressed some of the distribution. He suppressed the film. A lot of people didn't get to see it. He tried to buy the negative and destroy the film, so nobody got to see it. It didn't get good reviews from any Hearst publication, so it didn't get seen. It was a financial flop at the time, and obviously you don't get awards if ever half the reviews are bad, and not as many people have seen it. But obviously the film's reputation has grown and grown over the years. Its revolutionary techniques of storytelling and film technique, camera work, and everything have become the standard. And Citizen Kane is just a word that everyone kind of knows in the back of their minds, even if they're not really into films. If you say Citizen Kane, they go, "Oh, that's that great movie," basically. Quick summary of what the film is about. I guess people will know this, but maybe people don't. Maybe people will just go, "Oh, Citizen Kane is a great film," but not really necessarily know much about it. But the film opens with a newsreel announcing the death of Charles Foster Kane, this huge mogul of media and other industries. And he's died alone and kind of unlamented in this not quite finished Xanadu kind of palace mansion that he was building and lived in. And there are hints of the fallings out and the relationships and the stuff that happened in his life and his humble beginnings that he grew from. And the people running the newsreel stop it and say, "We don't really know who this guy was. You've just told me events that anyone knows if they read the papers. But what was really going on with this guy?" And his last words as he dies and drops a snow globe rolling onto the ground in very impressionistic noir style is "Rosebud." And this was reported because a member of staff heard him say it just as he died, a bit of a device, a dramatic device. So a journalist who sort of gets named, sort of isn't, he's kind of the over-the-shoulder viewpoint of the audience for the rest of the movie, going, "Okay, what's Rosebud? What was really going with Charles Foster Kane? I'm going to go and speak to everyone who knew him and see if I can get the real story, the real guy." And over time, you get this film playing out in flashback, which was kind of innovative at the time, of the people who knew Kane, and then flashbacks to his childhood, his rise to power, his political career, all of these different things happening, and eventually how he ended up sad and alone in his empty mansion. And there is an open-ended slightly, or maybe a bit of a famous ending, as that what Rosebud really is. And I'm not going to spoil that here, but if you look up what's Rosebud, it'll tell you in 3 seconds. So if you really don't want to know, don't look it up, just watch the film first. So my background with the film is, like anyone who wasn't there to see it originally, I heard about it over and over. Citizen Kane, Orson Welles, great film. Understood its reputation long before I saw it. I originally had it on DVD, a copy that got old and worn, so I upgraded to Blu Ray when I was generally upgrading to Blu Ray sometime in the past kind of 10 years. The film is legendary. It's become this byword of best of all time. For example, if someone says, "Oh, this film was rubbish," but compared to epic movie, it's Citizen Kane. It's that kind of thing. It's shorthand for best film of all time. I think sometimes the film suffers because everyone goes into it thinking, "Oh, this is the best film of all time. This is going to blow my socks off." That's going to be hard, because the other thing about it is that it was revolutionary in the way it used cameras and storytelling and everything else. And every film ever that's revolutionary and influential doesn't seem as pioneering when you watch it 80 years later, because everyone started doing that. But it was this byword, a legendary film. The story of how Hearst tried to restore the films I mentioned earlier. Wells' protestations that it was only partly based on him, it was based on a bunch of people, it was based on archetypes. The film flopped, but its reputation grew. It was shown on television, it was shown on like reissues. Orson Welles was seen as the first auteur. endless stories. Orson Welles kind of trying to burnish his reputation as the wonderkind of new filmmaking, and sort of didn't want to give anyone else credit for their contributions. The hubris of this talented but arrogant guy. All of this stuff is playing around, which makes people forget sometimes that underneath is a film with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Not necessarily in that order, but it's a film and it's a story, and you can sit down and watch the movie. It's a movie about a person, and once I actually got to do that, I saw what the film really was, which is, I think, excellent character study and drama of the rise and fall of wealthy, powerful men in the 20th century, and how a man's desire to dominate the business world ends up leading to a desire to dominate the political world, or just the world full stop. Whatever's driving them, whatever thing is missing in their heart, or whatever stereotype you want to do for it, this is a movie about how, after a while, this person who maybe you sympathise at the start when he's an orphan and been brought up by a bank, and he's rebellious and tries things, and he's brave in a lot of ways. And then by the end of it, you realise he's really egotistical. If he wants things to be a certain way, he just will. He marries a singer and says, right, you're going to be the next opera star. And I'm going to buy an opera house and tell all my newspapers to give her good reviews because I just think I can control everything. And there's plenty of resonance in its themes even today, because those kinds of domineering personalities are still very much with us. It is very of its time, and of course, like I say, every filmmaker has since made use of Wells's innovations, deep focus so that you can see everything on screen, which took some very clever lighting back then. The style and tone, the flashback structure, the editing between scenes. It's not going to seem as revolutionary to a new viewer, but you can still see a good movie. And, even that psychological element, it would have seemed really novel at the time. It opened the door for other people to try similar themes in their films. And those films have delved deeper and got to more profound truths than this old man's memories of Rosebud. Some of it suffers a bit now, but at its core, it's a really good film. It's really well acted, well made. It's, forget all the talk about, is this the best movie? Every movie just deserves to just be watched in and of itself. And in that, it's a very good film. I think a good example of this is I was watching this, and my wife sort of walks into the room and says, what's this? Oh, it's Citizen Kane. Oh, I've heard about that. And without being forced to, without me telling her to come and sit down or anything, which she wouldn't do anyway, she sort of has an eye on it and then comes and then she sits down and ends up watching the whole movie because it's a good film, And deep down, that's what it is. I'm not really interested in building a shrine to any movie, even my very favourite ones. I don't personally think it's the best film ever made, but if I was a young guy getting into films when this film came out, maybe I would think that, Maybe that's why, Scorsese or other people from the previous generation do think that. But let's talk about the disc now. It's a 2016 standard disc issued by Warner Brothers for the 75th anniversary of the film. And really, they'd already done a 70th anniversary in 2011. It's the same transfer with some of the same features. So anyone who bought the 2011 Blu Ray wouldn't really be getting anything different this time. It's one disc. It's the Blu Ray of the film. The film has been remastered. I think some work was done to repair the film and everything, because these old cans of film can just sit around for a long time. But it's not got a huge number of frills. Other editions have more going on. However, for a basic disc, there is a decent selection of special features. There's a commentary by director Peter Bogdanovich, who was a Welles disciple. He ended up completing an unfinished film of Welles. There's another commentary by the legendary film critic Roger Ebert, who's always got interesting things to say about films. There's newsreel footage of the 1941 world premiere of the film, an interview with Ruth Warwick, who played Wells's first wife in the film, interview with Robert Wise, who was an editor on Citizen Kane before embarking on his own directing career. There's theatrical trailer, stills gallery, and a collection of other material from the time, including ad campaigns, correspondence. I don't normally talk about the special features, and I don't delve deeply into them even in this, but this is a film with a big history. There's a big story behind it, and there will be some good stories there. And for a standard disc that you can get for about £7, this is pretty good. It's quite a few special features on it, and they are worth delving into for this movie. The fact that David Fincher made a whole movie about the writing of this film shows you this film has an enduring fascination. So I would dig into those special features if I were you. So let's talk about the video. Sometimes when I'm talking about more recent films, I'm not super technical about film technique at all, but I've kind of got a grasp of things like, Panavision and the difference between film and digital and stuff like that. A little bit out of my depth on 1940s film stuff, but I will read the technical specs that I found out about this film. It's filmed on 35mm Eastman Plus film and Super XX film. I'm not sure what Super XX is. They used Mitchell BNC cameras and Cookspeed Panchro and Astro Berlin Takar lenses, whatever those are. I assume they were important because the cinematographer on this, Greg Toland, was a pioneer, and this is revolutionary. This film did things with the cinematography that previous films hadn't done. The aspect ratio is 137, aka Academy. That's the square of format. That was standard in the 40s. The widescreen shape we have now didn't really come in until the 1950s. So you don't get that fully wide, expanse of a Western. It feels really weird watching a Western in that square of format. I mean, I'm just not used to films that don't give you the full wide vista. However, it is very good for like high ceilings and cavernous spaces. IMAX is a taller format as well, so it's not completely out of the reference, but you will have like some black lines on the side of your TV screen when you watch this. It's in black and white, obviously. The digital intermediate that was used for this used original restored negative because, like I say, these films get a bit mouldy when they're just left alone. But someone did a lot of work to repair the negative and then did a digital intermediate in 4K. They used Dolby Vision on it. So they did a lot of work to produce a decent intermediate, which then turned into an HD reproduction for this disc. Now, I haven't done a lot of black and white here on Maximum Disc. I recently did the Battle of Algiers, but that was purposely done in a grainy documentary style. This is Golden Age Hollywood black and white. This would have been a prestige production when it came out. Now, it looks absolutely beautiful. There have been some criticisms of this transfer in terms of the work to turn it digital and compress it for Blu Ray has left some not great detail in some scenes. The new 4K that has since come out claims to have fixed and improved on this. Personally, I think no version will be fully perfect because they were working from very old prints, which weren't in the best condition. They had to be restored. They had to be repaired. And also, it's in the style of the film as well. I'm not sure how much of people's criticisms is to do with whatever you try and do for a digital transfer of an old movie like this. The toothpaste tube is going to squeeze out one end or the other. Darker scenes are soft, almost soft focus, and I think that was a byproduct of Toland's cinematography, a lot of filters that they used. They're using a lot of age makeup on Orson Welles and other people. So by its nature, I think some of these scenes are not going to be as sharp as some things that you've seen, not that full sharpness you sometimes get on like a more modern black and white film, like say Kubrick stuff that he did up until the early 60s. The brighter scenes are pin sharp. It looks very nice to me. And like I say, I think the opposite criticism might apply to an Ultra HD 4K version of this, because if you try and clean up what the original video looked like too much, are you going to see too much of the join or too much of the soft focus? So for me, I think it looks great. I'm still searching for the answer to the question of whether you need to go up to 4K for black and white. Similar for animation. Like I've got the Ghibli film Spirited Away on normal Blu-ray. I think it looks amazing. I bought The Boy and the Heron on 4K Blu-ray, which I'll be talking about in this series sometime in the future. It looks great. I'm just not sure how much better it looks in 4K because those animated films don't go to 4K, I don't think, when they're hand-drawn. Some of these old black and white, I don't know. I mean, I've seen a 4K streaming version of Casablanca that looked really good, but still when they want to light the camera a certain way for Ingrid Bergman's face or for like old Orson Welles in this film, I'm like, did that need to be 4K? I still don't know. What I will tell you is that it's a really good Blu-ray. It's a really well-preserved picture of a good old black and white film. So I think the video is perfectly good. I didn't think it suffered at all. If you're an absolute purist, maybe you would have preferred a full 4K restoration. And that is out there. There's a Criterion 4K of this, and there's a standard 4K of this, which you could have gone with instead. In terms of the sound, the original audio for theatrical release was mono, as most things were then. This is all you get now. It holds up well. I think the sound is quite strong. It's not perfect, but I don't think the original would have been, just because of recording techniques back then. There are some echoes and scratches on the sound that remind you that you're watching an old movie. And I'm not sure I'd want to lose that, to be honest. Too clean maybe wouldn't feel right. Maybe it would take you out of the film, because maybe that's just me and my memories of watching old films on the TV when I was a kid, and you just got that, there's those footsteps are quite echoey, and I think they're meant to be quite echoey in this big cavernous house that he lives in. So on the whole, I think the sound is good, but it's not going to, it comes out in 5.1 perfectly well, and you hear different sounds in different places, but your system is just working with a single audio track and moving it where it thinks will sound best for you. It's not revolutionary. The score by Bernard Herrmann is really well rendered here. It does run a full range of moods from full power orchestral to some quieter moments. It's very nicely rendered here, nice and clear, nice and strong when it needs to be. So good, solid sound. Really, I think overall you're talking about the movie. And I think people are going to struggle with this film in terms of it's very 40s, it's very old-fashioned. I mean, it was very pioneering for the time, but 8 decades have passed in which this film has become a standard for other films. So it's going to seem like an old movie. It's a very good old movie. And you can watch it and go, yeah, that flashback structure. And I think it's powerful. I think forget the whole, is this the best movie you've ever made? And just go, I think this is a really good character study of that kind of person, which will still give you some insights. And it's well made. Wells is a really good actor. Joseph Cotton's really good. Everyone's good. Ruth Warwick is not in it very long as the wife, but she's good. She's got a nice sort of, balance to her performance. So it's a good film. Some would say a great film. Look, I think there are people that would talk about my love of Once Upon a Time in America and Blade Runner, and those films are 40 years old now and go, oh, they're a bit dated now. Every generation is going to think something else is the best film ever. But for me, I just think it's really good and worth watching. Should you add this to your collection? Okay, so look, this film is on TV a fair bit. It's on the BBC a fair bit. So I'm going to watch a good old movie, Citizen Kane, no brainer. You can watch this film from time to time on streaming if you want to. If you are a cinephile and you want some of the best films of all time, the most important films of all time, I think Citizen Kane is one of them. It's a very good film. I've always wanted to own it just because I think, yeah, it's Citizen Kane. Why shouldn't I have it on my shelf? So definitely a copy of Citizen Kane is needed. I think HD, the restorations that they've done, the old DVD was very grainy compared to this. This or the 4K. At the moment, I'm happy with the Blu Ray disc, but we'll see. One of these times I'm going to get to a 4K restoration of a black and white film, and the scales will fall off my eyes literally, and I'll say, oh God, this is it. And I'll go back and I'll get the 4K. But for the 4K Blu-ray, you're talking about 20 quid for the standard, 30 odd quid for the Criterion, if you can get it. And this is £7. So, probably less in dollars in America, because that's the way this shit works. So I think the Blu-ray is fine, but if you already know you love this film, you already believe in this film as a proper milestone in cinema, yeah, go and get that 4K. But I do think if you do want to have a physical media collection, this is totally worth having. With those caveats, you're limited for space, you're not sure if you love it, you can watch it fairly easily on streaming first and then see how much you like it. So that's Citizen Kane. I hope you enjoyed me reviewing it. I certainly enjoyed talking about it with you. There are plenty of other episodes of Maximum Disc to watch. We've got Dune, Lawrence of Arabia, Diva, the old French film, Small and Big, Old and New, if you want to check a few things out. Once again, if you enjoyed the show, please do check out the Double Reel podcast, and ways to find our podcast and our socials will be on the screen in a moment. And I hope to see you next time for more physical media chat right here on Maximum Disc. The Maximum Disc YouTube channel is brought to you by Double Reel, the monthly magazine podcast for the discerning film nerd. If you like our celebration of physical media, please check out the podcast for more chat about the films we love and hate.